Coming up on Lawmakers, the Senate narrowly passes a measure to allow Sunday alcohol sales in some public stadiums. The House fails to adopt a resolution to establish English as the official language of Georgia. And an exclusive interview with House Majority Leader Representative Jerry Keene. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, Wandi Lawson and David Zelski.
Good evening, everyone. Also on Lawmakers, the House adopts a bill requiring pharmacists to report prescriptions to a statewide database, and legislation expanding school vouchers passes the Senate Education Committee. But first, our top story tonight, 2 bills broadening Sunday alcohol sales in Georgia clear the Senate. The state Senate approves a couple of measures dealing with the sale of alcohol today, and Lawmakers Sandra Parrish joins us live with the details. Sandra.
David, one of those bills allows limousine drivers to sell alcohol. The other allows the future Gwinnett County Stadium to sell beer on Sundays. What was not voted on today was the controversial measure to allow local communities to vote on Sunday retail sales.
Baseball, beer, and peanuts. They are as American as apple pie.
Senator Renee Unterman, sponsor of Senate Bill 454, wants the new Gwinnett Stadium, future home of the Braves AAA farm team, to be able to sell beer on Sundays.
This is not a vote on Sunday sales. This is a vote for our region. This is our vote for our state. This is a vote for our county, for economic development.
I am in favor of this legislation because this is about the expansion of economic liberty in Georgia. It's about giving people the rights to do this.
Many speculated Senator Harp would amend the measure with his Sunday sales bill, Senate Bill 137. Instead, he used it to call for a vote on his legislation.
This is an issue that the people of Georgia want to be heard about and ask that we respond to. And I hope that in the not-too-distant future, we will have the opportunity to address and finally, once and for all, put this issue to bed.
But proponents of Sunday sales say today's vote was clearly one to expand Sunday sales.
I would find it hard for the senators to not believe they should vote for a bill allowing grocery stores, convenience stores, and liquor stores to be able to take care of their customers now that there is a vote to expand Sunday sales.
Even the matter of Sunday sales was brought up in the debate of Senate Bill 385 to allow limo drivers to sell alcohol.
Are they going to be able to drink these alcoholic beverages on Sunday in these limousines?
Basically, the law would be, in current law, if you're a dry county, you wouldn't be able to sell liquor in the limousine. It all has to do with whatever county you're in, whether you can sell or not. So, you know, if it's Sunday and sales are illegal on Sunday, then you cannot drink on Sundays.
So I can rent a limousine and buy alcohol through the limousine service. I can go to the ball game and buy alcohol there. I can leave the ballpark on Sunday and go to the local restaurant and buy alcohol, but yet I can't go to the 7-Eleven.
House Majority Leader Jerry Keene says amending either when they go to the House may be difficult.
Why take what is obviously a very controversial bill and a vote if the Senate says we're not going to vote on it? So even if we add language to that bill and take a vote on it and they go back and say, well, they'll just kill that bill, we won't vote on it, it doesn't really solve the problem. What we need is a commitment from the Senate leadership that they will have a vote on that bill, and we have said day one, whether you support it or oppose it, we vote it.
And right now, proponents of Sunday sales are looking for House members who would be willing to step up with those amendments. By the way, Senate Bill 454 passed on a vote of 30-20. Senate Bill 385 passed 40-11. Reporting live, I'm Sandra Parrish for Lawmakers.
All right, thank you very much, Sandra. In other news, the House today defeats a measure to make the English language law a constitutional amendment.
If someone does not speak any English, their average income is between $16,000 and $18,000 a year. The more English they know, the greater their income. If they know English well, their economic income then goes up to $38,000 to $42,000 a year. Which makes that so important, they become self-dependent upon themselves and less dependent upon government.
But there was not universal agreement about the economic impact of the bill that amends the state constitution to require that all state documents be in English, including driver's license exams. And this pitted 2 multilingual legislators against each other.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you in English.
First, Representative Charlene Byrd, who refers to herself as the Asian Caucus of One.
If I understand the argument, somehow we are going to make it easier for foreigners to assimilate into our culture by providing government services in Thai. There is one reason, and one reason only, to oppose this legislation. That reason is about big group hug government.
Why don't we spend some time on substance and solutions? It is time to represent the interests of Georgians. For this is the house of the people. Nothing more, nothing less. Yo también soy América. I too am America. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
English is the language of commerce. It is the language of assimilation. And in Georgia, it has always been the language of freedom, which is why this body, in its wisdom and in its moderation and in its justice, passed a law in 2002 recognizing English as the official language of government in Georgia.
When the bill failed to get the requisite two-thirds majority, opponents could be heard cheering outside the House chamber.
If a foreign national comes to the state of Georgia, spends longer than 30 days in the state of Georgia, by law, you have to get a driver's license in our state. Well, if they're not proficient enough to take the test in English, then they be able to get a driver's license, and that would prohibit business from being conducted here in the state of Georgia.
Now, House Resolution 413 was defeated 103 to 61. Representative Bearden will ask the House to reconsider its action tomorrow. And the House passed legislation this morning targeting prescription drug shopping. Lawmakers Bridget Snapp joins us live with more. Bridget.
David, House Bill 455 would require pharmacists to report prescriptions they fill into a statewide database to be monitored by the Georgia Board of Pharmacy. The bill's sponsor, Representative Ron Stevens, says Georgians are currently able to obtain multiple prescriptions from different doctors and pharmacists because there's no such monitoring device in place.
What typically will happen, and it happens with truck drivers, for example, that might come in the state of Georgia, and they may start down in St. Mary's and go to a physician and tell them I've got a backache and I need Vicodin or hydrocodone. Leave from there, have the prescription filled, and go right to the next pharmacy, which might be in Kingsland. Another physician who might write the same prescription, could be a large quantity, have the prescription filled there and move to the next pharmacy. In Georgia today, there is no mechanism of tracking that, and it's these same-day prescriptions that are filled for the same drug that are going to throw up flags. And at that point, it's up to the Board of Pharmacy to either contact the Drugs and Narcotic Agency for the pharmacy and or the licensing board for that physician to investigate it. You may recall last year we had a very public case. We had a wrestler, Chris Benoit, who killed himself and his family as a direct result of moving from one pharmacy to another, and typically it happens going from one doctor to another without a mechanism that we can stop this drug shopping, so to speak. House Bill 455 will correct that, and again, it will bring us in line with the other southern states.
The bill passed 149 to 8. The bill calls for federal funding and imposes penalties of up to $1,000 and a year in jail for pharmacists failing to meet the reporting requirements. It now heads to the Senate. Reporting live, I'm Bridget Snapp for Lawmakers.
Okay, thank you very much, Bridget. And MARTA expansion legislation passed the Senate today. SB 332 authorizes MARTA bus and rail in 5 metro Atlanta counties. Now, MARTA already had bus route options in Cobb and several in Clayton County, but this legislation could open the door for future rail options and MARTA access to the new baseball stadium in Gwinnett.
It's perhaps a lucky coincidence that this bill comes to the Senate on the same day we're going to have a discussion about the importance of the planned sports facility to host the minor league ball club in Gwinnett County. What this bill would allow is for MARTA bus service to serve the events at that facility, so that if MARTA wanted to have a line that went to what will be, I suppose, the Gwinnett County Braves games, they could do so in the same way, I'm told, as MARTA provides service to Six Flags.
Senator Kurt Thompson, who sponsors the bill, explains what a county must do if they want to use this tool to expand their rail transit options.
They'll still have to come up with funding, and that'll be a contract entered into between that county, whether it be Gwinnett, Clayton, or Cobb, it would have to be a contract between that county and MARTA on how to pay for it. So you could do it with a penny sales tax. You could do it with a penny sales tax just in the area served, called a service district. Or you could do it through other revenues. But basically this just simply allows MARTA and the various MARTA counties to have that extra tool in their tool belt so that we can begin the process of building a world-class transportation system.
Now SB 332 passed 34-18 and now goes over to the House. Well, our Tuesday Leadership Series continues with House Majority Leader Jerry Keene. Representative Keene said the House budget priorities remain education, health care, and law enforcement.
Last year we were able to raise our state trooper pay, but we also have our GBI, we have corrections officers, and our Department of Natural Resources game and park rangers. So our goal this year, as our chairman of that committee, Chuck Martin, said, is to take care of those who take care of ourselves. And then health care continues to be an important part of our budget, and making sure that trauma care and the other aspects of health care are fully funded in the budget. That's a big challenge to meet all those priorities, stay within our balanced budget guidelines and the revenue estimate the governor's issued us. But I'm confident our Appropriations Committee can do that. They're working on that now, and hopefully here in the not-too-distant future, you'll see that 09 budget, which actually meets all of those goals.
Now, why did the House decide to go with kind of this more proactive stance? In other words, having a press conference before the budget is actually being worked through. We're not used to seeing that.
Right. Chairman Harbin really felt he wanted to do this. He came to us and said, you know, before our appropriation members and our subcommittee chairs work, we want to sort of say these are our goals. This is what we're working for. And as you know, he was joined at that press conference by a large number of House members and people from law enforcement, education, and health care that said, we stand with you on this. It's more of saying up front, this is what we're going to do. Sometime down here in the budget process, as you know, people think you're trying to play this game or that game, and that's not the case. We are trying to play the budget game, if you will, with our cards face up from the beginning. Chairman Harbin has made it clear of what our priorities are. That's what we're working to. There are no surprises, and as I said, hopefully when that budget comes to the floor of the House, we'll be able to meet all those goals.
Now, the House Senate Conference Committee is working through the amended 08 budget right now, and one of the sticking points around that is where education funding falls within the 08 amended versus the 09 budget.
Right. The governor, as you know, recommended money in the budget, amended 08 budget, for school buses and also money for technology, which we supported and put that, moved that through the House budget. In addition, we added to that $30 million for equalization grant money back to our school systems, which what this does is take some of the cuts and the austerity cuts that have taken place and gets money to these school systems now. And the reason we want to do it in the 08 in Wandi is very clear. If we don't do this in the amended 08 budget, then getting the computers and getting the school buses bought and the orders placed so that they're in place when our students return in August for the new school year, it simply won't happen if we wait to 09. We have the money now. We have the money now, so the House is saying let's fund education now. Let's not put it into the next budget year when we don't know what may or may not happen. Let's do it now, and that's really the difference. I think the Senate agrees with us on the funding of these issues. They just want to put it off to the next budget year. We'd like to get it done now.
Well, speaking of education, there has, of course, Speaker Richardson's tax plans making their way out of Ways and Means last week, and a little concern from some in the education community about what this might mean to their funding in the future. Bring us up to speed with where the tax plans go from here.
Well, in the version that actually passed out of committee, and it has been changed a lot, there's been a lot of misinformation and, candidly, some disinformation about the bill. But really what the bill says to local school systems is you take the exact digest, property tax digest that you have now to the penny, you submit that to the state check, and rather than pay for that through property taxes only, through homeowners, we're going to pay through that by consumption tax, which means we're going to take the burden for that exact amount of money and take it off this many people and put it on this many people, including a lot of people who travel through our state on a daily basis. We believe that's a more equitable way to fund education. We're not limiting the funding. We are not in any way taking away local control. In fact, we do the exact same thing now through their homeowner tax relief grant that was started many years ago. Counties send that up now, the digest, they send it to us, and we cut them a check. It's been working well for several years. It continues to work that way, and that way they'll still have local control to determine how much they're going to assess. We'll simply pay for it out of a separate pot of money, and they'll retain all the same control they have now as to how they spend it. So we think it's a good common sense measure that really would do this. It would cut the taxes, homeowner property taxes, for most homeowners in Georgia by about 50%. And ultimately what we want to do is take that to the voters of Georgia. So what this measure does is say, ladies and gentlemen of the House and Senate, if you vote for this measure, all we're doing is sending it to the next step to the voters, the taxpayers of Georgia, to let them know how to vote. And I'm hopeful we can get that 2/3 majority required.
All right, Representative Jerry Keene, I know you're very busy with your conference committee work as well as the rest of the legislative business, but we thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we apologize for those audio dropouts. In other news, House action today included passage of a measure to crack down on the misuse of state purchasing cards.
As you recall, back in the early fall, late summer last year, there was quite a bit of news out about purchasing cards and the abuse and theft by some employees of the state of Georgia. After that stories came out, we took on the responsibilities in the Special Projects Subcommittee of Appropriations to look into the activities on purchasing cards to see if there was something that we need to do legislatively to fix the problem.
Passage of a measure intended to protect children from lead paint exposure was preceded by debate about how testing would impact landlords.
They must go to other places that are where a child, that little of a child, is not in a whole lot of places. They're either in preschool or with the grandparents. And those places must be checked out and must be negative. And the homeowner then must still refuse to let them come and check for the last place they can look to see where the lead poisoning is coming from. And if the homeowner refuses to do it at that point, then they go to the judiciary system where a homeowner has the due process of law, and they have to convince a judge that there is a reason that they should be allowed in that home. And it's not circumstantial. It's through blood work from a physician.
Representative David Lucas of Macon indicated that he will ask the House to reconsider the vote tomorrow.
Haven't you had this bill before? Hasn't it passed this body before? More than once. That's what I thought. Third time's the charm.
The House also passed the Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank Act. Again, the measure creates a bank to collect tolls and loan money for road projects. The House also voted to prevent students from other states from qualifying for in-state tuition or scholarships.
How often do you get calls from parents who are frustrated with you because their kid did not get into a college or university in this state? And what do we have to tell them? Somebody from Tennessee or Florida took their space? And not only that, they got Georgia tuition and they qualified for the Hope Scholarship. That is wrong.
The House and Senate conferees appointed to the 08 amended budget are scheduled to meet tomorrow morning. Senate President Pro Tem Eric Johnson took some time this morning to discuss a couple of the key subjects of disagreement.
We're really working cooperatively to try and find a common ground. The Indigent Defense Public Defenders Council money is one of them. It continues to be the Senate's position that based on what they asked for last year, plus the $4 million that they got, plus the what's in the governor's budget, gives them more than they originally asked for. We also want to make sure that state agencies don't do what this one has done for the second year in a row, is come back at the end of the year and say we spent all our money and disaster is going to happen if you don't give us more money. The other big one, which is going to complicate the budget negotiations for a while, I think, is the legitimate and sincere effort to try and figure out what's the best place to put resources into public education. I've talked about this before. The governor's put $70 million in cash into technology and fuel-efficient buses in the amended. The House kept the technology money, took the bus money, put it in bonds, scooped up $30 million and put it into equalization. The Senate, remember, took the all $70 million of education, prepaid debt to move it into the 09 budget to look at reducing the austerity cuts in half.
The 6 conferees are scheduled to meet at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow.
Both DeKalb and Fulton County Commissions have now approved the transfer of Grady Memorial Hospital to a nonprofit board. The plan to turn over governance of the cash-strapped trauma hospital was approved by Fulton County last week and DeKalb County earlier today. The Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce began urging the nonprofit transfer last spring in exchange for nearly $200 million in philanthropic funding. Retired head of Georgia Pacific Pete Carl, whose name has emerged as a potential chairman of the new board, told us 2 weeks ago that the board would take over in a matter of days after the approval of the county commissions. This afternoon, House Majority Leader Jerry Keene weighed in with his opinion of this decision.
Now that the counties have approved that, there is a process in place which now allows Grady to appoint a board, to elect a board, elect a chairman, and begin all the things that they can do legally now. And now that that's in place and a new board is in place, then I'm sure that's going to give comfort to not only the legislature, but also to members of the business community and the chamber and others who've been working. So that is a strong commitment to back to us that allows us to, again, take a look. And I think the governor and everyone has said, Lieutenant Governor, Speaker, we want to help Grady, but we want to make sure that there's some things in place in this agreement that I'm assuming the new board will also adopt and sign off on will give us those assurances.
A measure expanding the use of school vouchers passed out of the Senate Education Committee today, and Lawmakers Andi Dixon joins us live from the Capitol with the details. Andy.
David, Senate Bill 458 provides that if a school system fails to attain accreditation, loses said accreditation, or is designated a needs improvement school for 7 consecutive years, the student would be allowed to attend another public school or to receive a scholarship to a private school. Bill 458. Recommendation by a margin of 7-4. In another decision, Senate Bill 506, or the Student Health and Physical Education Act, passed out of committee without dissenting vote. That bill requires school systems to calculate the aggregate body mass index of its student body and to report those findings to the Department of Education. Both bills now travel to the Senate Rules Committee for a vote. Reporting live, I'm Andi Dixon for Lawmakers.
All right, thank you very much, Andy. And legislation to incorporate the area of Dunwoody in North DeKalb was resurrected today by a House committee that had killed the bill 3 weeks ago. Senate Bill 82, which passed the Senate last session, was tabled by the House. It was then picked up by the House Governmental Affairs Committee 3 weeks ago, but failed a due-pass motion. It was reconsidered by that committee today and passed by a vote of 7-5. However, according to House rules, such a motion for reconsideration after a bill has died must be made by a member who originally voted against the bill. Representative Mark Hatfield, who served that role today, explains why he changed his mind.
After I've further reviewed the legislation, talked about it with all the parties, I feel like that it's important to give it an up or down vote on the floor. And the parties, Representative Millar, Senator Weber, they have all worked very hard on this legislation to give the citizens of Dunwoody an opportunity to vote, and I feel like it deserves a vote on the floor.
Now, the majority of the DeKalb County delegation opposes the bill because they believe the issue should be decided at the local level. Regardless, it now heads over to the House.
The Senate Public Safety Committee took up legislation today aimed at helping to fund trauma care. Lawmakers Caroline Yaga has more.
The committee took up Senate Bill 394, which would send a portion of the funds generated by traffic control devices to fund a trauma care network.
We all are here for the improving the trauma care network.
They all, however, did not agree. The bill did not pass. On the other hand, Senate Bill 488, which would allow legal foreign nationals to keep their license from their home country, passed out of committee.
One of the problems we have now is that people who come, international businessmen or businesswomen that come here, are required to surrender their license from their home country. And in many countries, it's very costly and very timely or time-consuming to acquire a license, and it seems unfortunate they would have to surrender their license here and then have to go back and face those costs and that time again. A couple of years ago, we required that anyone that was here in the United States and their time of stay was an indefinite stay, that they would have to go back every year and get their driver's license. This extends that period from 1 year to 3 years. Those people who are here and they possess a valid international driving permit, based upon a treaty the United States entered into a number of years ago, would also they would obtain that valid international driving permit.
Again, Senate Bill 488 passed out of committee. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Caroline Yaga.
A coalition of human rights activists known as the Georgia Moratorium Campaign held a press conference today in support of Senate Bill 255, which calls for a moratorium on the death penalty. Senator Vincent Fort, sponsor of the bill, stressed the need for legal representation in death penalty cases.
We need to adequately fund indigent defense in Georgia. You know, the Senate Appropriations Committee slashed over $500,000 from the indigent defense budget. What that means is that many people who face the death penalty, people who are innocent until proven guilty, are going to be more likely not to get an adequate defense.
The Georgia Moratorium Campaign also expressed their support for House Bill 997, a measure that they say could improve the process of eyewitness identification. The bill's sponsor, Representative Stephanie Benfield, spoke about the importance of this legislation.
Of the 7 exonerees in Georgia, every single one of them was convicted on the basis of wrongful eyewitness identification. House Bill 997 is very simple. It simply says that every law enforcement agency in the state that conducts eyewitness IDs should have written policies on that.
House Bill 997 is currently in the House Rules Committee. Senate Bill 225 is currently in the Senate Judiciary Committee.
A flawed federal funding model for children's health care has left the state's Peach Care program cash-strapped. This according to testimony Governor Sonny Perdue gave today before a health subcommittee of the U.S. House of Representatives. Perdue told the committee that the state has done its part to enroll children of the working poor, but he said the allotment of resources is based on the number of uninsured children in the state, which negatively impacts states like Georgia and Mississippi and North Carolina. For almost a year, the Georgia Department of Community Health has had to limit the number of enrollees in Peach Care while awaiting federal funding of the state Children's Health Insurance Program, which funds Peach Care. A dapper Representative DeBose Porter went to the well this morning to explain his recent absence and a jaunty new hat.
I thought I ought to explain the hat. You know, in 26 years, I've never missed but one day at the General Assembly till last week. And when they found the spot on my head and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, I had to take some time to get some things fixed. I just want to thank you for your thoughts and prayers. Remember to wear your sunscreen. And the hat is really for your benefit instead of mine because it looks pretty rough up there. But good to be back. Thank you for your prayers and your calls and your letters. Thank you.
And we wish Representative Porter continued good health. Coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, it's Poor People's Day at the Capitol. The Minimum Wage Coalition is expected to rally in support of legislation that would raise the state's minimum wage. And a House-Senate compromise on the FY08 amended budget could come as early as tomorrow. We'll have those stories and all the latest Capitol news tomorrow night on Lawmakers at 7 p.m. If you've missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, tune in when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. You can also keep up with all the action under the Gold Dome daily on your local GPB radio station during Morning Edition, All Things Considered, and evenings at 6 p.m. on Georgia Gazette. Now stay tuned for Georgia Outdoors. That's coming up next here on GPB.
And that is our broadcast for this, the 23rd Legislative Day of 2008. I'm David Zelski.
And I'm Wendy Lawson. Have a great evening.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.